Aotearoa Flavel.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Kia ora tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, listening to the stories that Sir William Seal, Talofalava, presented to the House today, and indeed recognising that people like Simon Bridges have had to defend, or rather prosecute, people involved in some of the incidents that have been described. It's pretty hard to sit and listen to some of those issues, and personally sort of pretty much turns me off. I don't want to hear anymore and try and get rid of it, get it out of sight, out of mind. But having said that, having been involved and seen within and amongst my own whānau some of these issues, not to the degree that have been presented today, thank goodness, but certainly bad enough to say that husbands hitting wives, and not that that's talking about a very close family, but nevertheless being in a household where it did happen, it brings it all home. And in that regard, would be no surprise, and indeed I'm sure across the House as we talk about it, that we all say that the protection and the best interests of our tamariki and their families is the utmost importance to us all. And that is a declared position from the Māori Party. We've talked the last couple of days, I think, about, ranging from last night to Mr Garrett's discussion about Section 59 of the importance of our tamariki partners, in particular our wāhine, and looking after them as te whare tangata. And I suppose today it's simply reiterating many of those sorts of discussion points. In our waiata, as I've said in the past, in our waiata haka, actually the start of the week, it's so inspiring actually to know that within our kōrero and te ao Māori, there are all the stories that actually tell us about the world that we have now. And indeed, not just about the stories, but a part of wharenui. In wharenui we have tukutuku, the panels, the coloured panels that you might see, and you have patterns like kaukau, which are stylised armpit designs which for many represent the comfort, I suppose the protection of a parent over their children. So all the stories are there, whether they be able to be seen on wharenui or in terms of haka, waiata and poi. So as I say, there's got to be a real commitment to move back to those concepts, recognising, of course, that right now the statistics with respect to Māori, and I hear from Sir William Seal that similarly this is not solely a preserve of the Māori people, but certainly across the country. But I'll talk for my own people, simply because we have those stories and we need to move back to regaining our tikanga, our own kōrero and our mātauranga, and that is certainly something that we are trying to promote through the House of Parliament, but also in terms of a presentation of kaupapa to our people. So, sir, we support the intention of this bill to provide more protection for children who are the victims of domestic violence, and to ensure that family courts can manage concurrent proceedings involving children appropriately, and to reduce administrative barriers to court processes. As other speakers have sort of alluded to, the bill gives significance to addressing the needs of children and young people once there has been an incident. Everybody has been alluding to the fact that we need to look at this, and in particular around the instances of domestic violence. The Māori Party totally support the focus in recognising the interests and rights of children exposed to all forms of family violence, including psychological abuse, and we welcome the move to increase consistency between the Domestic Violence Act and the Care of Children Act regarding day-to-day care of and contact arrangements for children where violence is present or where an allegation of violence is made. For far too long, sir, the children huddled up in fear in the corner, watching on, and violent incidents has gone unchecked, and so any moves to address that are important. All we do in failing to address the protection of children is breed another generation of what the justice sector likes to call victims and perpetrators. Mr. Speaker, we prefer to focus on the pathway forward, te ara tikanga, and that is that of a vision that focuses on whānau ora and well-being of whānau members. But of course, we must not forget the need for preventative mechanisms that ought to be put in place to ensure as far as possible that violence does not occur in the first place. and we would like to see a greater investment in preventative measures to avoid incidents of violence against children. Mr Speaker, I'd be interested to hear from the Minister the progress with the Domestic Violence Reform Bill 2008, which remains on the Parliamentary Order Paper since its introduction in September 2008. The Domestic Violence Reform Bill includes provisions for preventative measures which are examples that could be considered. In particular, the scope of eligibility into state-funded domestic violence programs and parenting courses ought to be broadened to ensure the widest whānau circle can be involved. And I note today that a person in my electorate, Grace Dorset, has been working amongst the community for a very long time, asking for more resources to be given to her to help assist in dealing with domestic violence issues, in particular programs that are focused on the men themselves. I note that there was a press statement today in the Daily Post back in Rotorua or something of that nature with respect to the work that Grace is doing, and we fully endorse that. Mr Speaker, for Māori it's essential to understand that violence occurs within a broader whānau and social context, and that it is complicated by a range of factors and influences. It's time to open up the curtains on violence, expose it to the light of day, and we're working currently as the Māori Party on some initiatives we hope we might be able to advance either through Minister Paula Bennett or through the Minister of Māori Affairs or Minister Turia. We're interested in empowering whānau to determine their own solutions, of course, which is at the heart of whānau ora, giving the whānau time to put things in order to have a life without violence before the state enters into the whole scenario. Mr Speaker, I did want to raise another issue, and that is the relevance of the 1955 Adoption Act. I've been interested in the recommendation from the Commissioner of Children, John Angus, that a comprehensive review of the Adoption Act itself is long overdue. And I note that although the bill proposes a specific amendment to the Adoption Act that will increase penalties for those offering or accepting financial gain for adoption, it neglects to take up the opportunity for looking at the bigger picture around adoption. Māori have frequently raised the view that adoption is a legal fiction, meaning that one can never and should never artificially separate the child from knowledge of its birth parents or its whakapapa, its family trees. We would be interested in further discussion around the options of shared guardianship or enduring guardianship where birth parents and whakapapa are valued, and indeed the uniquely Māori concept of whāngai. Sir, we would welcome the Minister's views around including the concept of adoption within this discussion of child protection, because protection of whakapapa and the value of whanaungatanga is clearly obvious, is clearly important to us. So there are other aspects to this bill, including the mechanism to strengthen the legal framework against international trafficking of children and their commercial exploitation, which we of course wholeheartedly support. The bill also reduces the risk of children wrongfully removed from New Zealand, another feature that we strongly support. But there is one further anomaly which I would refer the Minister to. The amendments to the Immigration Act enacted in November 2009 have effectively cancelled the rights afforded to New Zealand citizen children whose parents are overstayers. The number of New Zealand citizen children affected by this is believed to number more than 1,000. So that's an important issue. So basically the removal of overstayer parents has resulted in the de facto removal of citizen children by the state, and in doing so sacrificing their citizenship right. I would like the Minister's assurance that that could be looked at. To conclude, sir, despite of our concerns, not concerns, but these issues put before us, we are definitely supporting this bill, and we look forward to further debate.